Welcome to Wealth Strategies Unleashed. I'm Robert Gilliland with Concenture Wealth Management.
And I'm Mike Alexander.
I hope everyone's doing great. It's a brand new year. And if you're like me, every year I sit down and I say, okay, these are my New Year's resolutions, and I get ready to get started. That's for a lot of times that's where it stops. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. Mike, what I thought we would do this year is let's brainstorm on some New Year's resolutions to help people make 2024 a financially successful year for them. Let's come up with like 3 or 4 ideas.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's always a lot easier to tackle the financial ones, Robert, sometimes than it is to tackle the personal ones. So, and I'm sure there's probably a handful of personal ones that we could put in there as well. But when I think about resolutions, I always think of things that perhaps are not always front and center. You're not always thinking about them every time. But I always think it's a really good idea to start the year by just saying taking some inventory and saying, where am I? Do I have a budget that's been put in place? Is there anything that that I haven't accounted for that I think may occur in the next year?
I agree with that. That's your starting point. You took one of my ideas in thinking about what we were going to talk about here, and that is, I think what you need to do is you do what you say. You sit down and you evaluate, where's this money going? What am I spending it on? That gives you a really great opportunity to see where maybe you're wasting money, or like, as an example, I know that when I do this, I always realize that I've got 1 or 2 subscriptions that I haven't accessed or done anything with, and it's time to cut those. And so there's ways to go through to save money. But I think one of the New Year's resolutions that I would do, and walking through and talking to people about strategies, how to make it so that you're successful, is I would do exactly what you just said, and that is set a savings goal. I want to save X number of dollars. It's okay for that to be an outlandish goal, right? And the reason why people aren't successful in reaching that savings goal is because they set a number and then they don't have a plan to do it. If your goal is to save $12,000, okay, let's figure out how we do that. Well, that's $1,000 a month. All right. That's 4 weeks in a month. That's $250 per week. I've got to figure out where I can save that, or $500 a paycheck. Those are some of the things that you can do. The way that you become successful at achieving these financial goals is by setting that and making it into smaller bite-sized pieces. Someone one time told me, if you have to eat an elephant, you don't want to try to do it in one bite. You want to do it bit by bit, and it all starts with that very first bite, right?
Absolutely.
What's another idea that you have?
Yeah, I think taking a look at your retirement plan, and just assessing and adjusting that if you feel like you need to make some changes. Obviously, 2023 a really positive year, but a year that was focused on just a handful of stocks really driving a lot of performance. Maybe the short answer is not a whole lot has to be done, but maybe there's some rebalancing or some adjustments that need to be made there just to make sure that you're on target.
I think to kind of take that, right, is to maybe one of your New Year's resolutions that makes it a little bit easier is that you sit down and you evaluate your allocation, make sure you're taking on that same risk, but then you turn around and set another date, put it on the calendar, call it July, to sit down to review and reassess and make sure that you're still on track. So maybe one of your New Year's resolutions is that you're going to monitor the performance a little bit better and some of the other things that you have, so that you can assess how you're doing and assess how you're doing and evaluate and make adjustments, adjust track along the way, because that way, towards the end of the year, you can look back and say, hey, I reached the goal, high five, I'm a winner.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some, there's a lot of other things that certainly can be done in terms of, adding to the list of resolutions. One thing as we kind of started out, you start talking about resolutions. Let's make sure it's something that where we can actually measure whether or not we were successful at doing it, and perhaps make sure that the list is not so long that, that we give up. So some of these can be done quite quickly. And then others, are a bit more of a process that may need to be done a little bit more regularly throughout the year. But, one of the things that pops up, is again, going back and taking a look at, our emergency fund. Did I have to tap that in 2023? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I have too much money in there. Maybe maybe I have room for additional investments. So I always think of that one. And I think, again, this is just part of maybe the conservative side of the way that we do things here at Concenture. But a lot of times you always want to think about what can go right, but also, hey, what if something goes wrong?
Yeah, that air conditioner or whatever, right? Something else that I think that you can do for the new year as a New Year's resolution is resolve to treat yourself like a bill. Now, what do I mean by that? Number one is that if you're participating in a 401k, you're already going through and treating yourself like a bill because that money's being withheld. But it will make a dramatic difference if every paycheck you have a certain dollar amount that gets moved over, whether that's to a savings account, an emergency fund, or an investment, and treat yourself like a bill and make that a non-negotiable. And the reality is that, $260 or so a month gets you almost to $2,000 a year. Well, that can make a big difference. That can be your IRA contribution. That can be a lot of things that you can go and do. And those little things like that, you get a sense of victory, which encourages you to go to do more. I'm a big proponent for that, but it also gives you a sense of accomplishment when you stop at the end of the year and realize where that is. Now, one of the things that I would also do is that if you do have debt, I'm talking about not necessarily the debt that you get tax deductions on, like a mortgage or something like that. But if you have credit card debt, your car, different things like that, one of the things, if you have multiple credit cards that carry a balance, one of the things that I think that you want to do is develop a strategy in the new year for getting those paid down, getting them paid off, getting yourself in a much better financial shape. And so that might be, instead of, paying a little bit extra or a lot extra on the one that has the highest interest rate, get that paid off and then take in and kind of snowball that into the next one to get that debt out of the way. If you can control in 2024, if you can control your cash flow, you're going to end up, when 2025 rolls around, you're going to end up feeling like you've actually accomplished something, and a New Year's resolution is going to be one thing that you keep.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, Robert. There's an old process that used to be, I guess, was always known as 50-30-20. And it was that you spend 50% of your income, you spend it on the things that you need. You spend 30% of it on the things that you want, and 20% of it actually goes to savings. And so in situations like you just mentioned, where you've already got debt, a lot of times those debts have been on things that you wanted, not necessarily things that you needed. So as you think about that 50-30-20, maybe that 30% in there, you still want to pay yourself, as you mentioned, and treat yourself as a bill. But also maybe you want to take that 30% and use it to pay down on those debts, because the things that you need, that 50% is, there's not a lot of negotiability on some of those things.
That's right. All right. So your financial New Year's resolutions, Mike, if you had to tell someone, what else, is there any other key points or key things that you would want to point out to someone as they're sitting here at the beginning of 2024 that they should be thinking about for a New Year's resolution, specifically with regard to their financial life?
There's one that I think is maybe overarching on top of all of that, and that is just increasing financial literacy. Maybe it's reading, one good article a week. Or
listening to great podcasts like Wealth Strategies Unleashed.
Bingo. But just learning a little bit more about finance and asset management and financial planning. An educated investor is always a better investor. It doesn't mean that somebody has to pull all of the levers themselves, but one of the things that you find as you get older and you approach retirement, whether it's filing for Social Security or Medicare, is that things don't get less complex. They seem to get a little bit more complex. And so just picking up, one or two of those can really help a lot. And the other thing is, Roberts, they can save you a lot of time. So the more more that going into one of those types of conversations, the quicker it is to make, a really good, sound decision.
I totally agree. Here's a couple. I'm going to kind of rapid fire a couple ideas that I think that for New Year's resolution to go through to be able to start to be successful, make it so it's painless to actually get these activities done. One of them could be, I need to review my estate plan and beneficiaries. That sounds daunting. It's real simple. Put down a date, call it March 1, that I'm going to talk. If I don't have a will, I'm going to talk to an attorney by March 1. Your beneficiaries, that's real simple. Go in and give us a call, call your financial advisor, ask them about who the beneficiaries are on your retirement accounts. Get online and check that out for your 401ks. So I would definitely be looking at my estate plan and my beneficiaries to make sure they're how I wanted them. That's one that you can do and be successful. One that you can do that will last all year is if you're not maxing out your 401k, you can go in and just increase your contribution by 1%. And a lot of these plans these days allow you to set for it every 2 months or every 3 months or every 6 months to automatically adjust upward. What is amazing, that 1% that you go and you move up, even if that is above, and especially you need to be maxing it out. And don't forget about catch-up contributions also. But what you have the ability to do is have that, and you're not going to really notice that in your paycheck. And so doing those types of things, ratcheting it up, whether it's every month, twice a year, however many times you can do it, have it so that it goes. If you're at 5%, in 2 months, you're at 6%. 2 months after that, you're at 8%, and you'll get to that point where you'll have it maxed out. By doing that and doing it at the beginning of the year, it becomes automatic, and you don't have to think or worry about it. So that's kind of two ideas that I had to kind of rapid fire on really easy New Year resolutions that are going to make a big difference for you.
Yeah, I'll give you one just and again, last the entire year. And that is, some focus on health and well-being, feeling better throughout the year. Obviously, if you're going to spend your entire retirement in retirement, the healthier you are, the better. And so I know a lot of times people like to focus on that at the very end of the year. But the result, in terms of just, making all their doctor's visits and so on and so forth. But there's no better time to start the focus on that than at the beginning of the year as well.
Well, this is a little bit of a shorter podcast than what we generally do. And I think that makes sense because, as you said at the beginning, generally when people sit down and they're like, hey, I've got New Year's resolutions, they make this big laundry list of things that they're going to go and do, and and it's too much. We've thrown out some ideas here that I think can be really tangible and make a difference to people. The key is that at the beginning of the year is a great time to sit down with us, to sit down, review where you are, take an inventory of how you've done, understand what's going to happen, and be prepared to make adjustments and changes. They can be very easy. And a lot of times those small, easy changes that you make in your financial behavior can make a huge difference. Remember, if you have to eat an elephant, you're not going to do it in one bite. Do it bit by bit and make sure that you get there. Mike, anything else? Are you that you can think of?
You have covered it all, my friend, today.
There we go. Well, again, I know this was a short one. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of Wealth Strategies Unleashed with Concenture Wealth Management. We'll see y'all next week.
See you next time.